You're very welcome along to Trader Chat with Johnny Ward and Flynn Goward. And Flynn Goward, the Star Sports trader, is a little bit glum this week because he is an Arsenal fan, and Arsenal were one of the big guns, the only one of the big guns, if you even want to call them that anymore, to lose this weekend, with all the other big guns pretty much winning. Flynn, it's pretty grim to be an Arsenal fan at the moment, and it might be grim for Arteta as well, judging by your market in terms of next manager to leave, which is very, very understandable at the moment.
Yeah, so next manager to go is Chris Wilder from Sheffield United, who also lost yesterday against Leicester. He's still favourite to go. Arteta is the real shortener this week. Was 10-1 when I spoke to you last week, Johnny. He's now 5-1 after losing the North London derby against Tottenham at the weekend.
How bad were they?
I think we were pretty poor. I think Spurs just did a complete job on us, and I think that's what Mourinho's going to set out to do in most games. I was quite discouraged with Arteta's post-match interview when he kind of talked about the fact that we had most of the ball and we dominated the game. I mean, we didn't create really good chances. So I was a bit discouraged with that, and I think his price is shortened up because of that a little bit. I think people are just losing faith, and I think that the reason he's not actually favourite is purely because it will be seen that the Arsenal board will want to give him time. He's a so-called big club. Will they give him time? And that's the reason why he's not first to go. I'm sure if this we're obviously underperforming a certain amount, and if this was a lower league team, potentially I would imagine that he would be much shorter in the betting. But that would be the reason why it's 5-1. But he's still shortening with these poor performances. And when we're looking at the outright market now, we've had a few changes there from last week when I spoke to you. So Liverpool are 15-8 from 13-8. So even though Liverpool were very strong at the weekend, they've actually gone out in the betting, and that'll be because City are still strong in the market as well at 2-1. And then Spurs and Chelsea are the teams to have shortened. So obviously Spurs beating Arsenal and Chelsea winning at the weekend. They're shortened into 5-1 from 11-2. And then Man United have also shortened from 18-1 from 25-1. And then with 40s Barca, Leicester have gone the other way. Go on, Johnny.
It is kind of feasible that 5 teams are in the title race. I think, like, you could probably rule out Leicester, but Tottenham and Chelsea, to me, Chelsea were quite impressive against Leeds, and Man United, to be fair, as bad as they were in the first half, if they win their game in hand, they're only 2 points off Liverpool. City are a point behind them. It's actually shaping up to be a decent title race.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have United with a barge pole purely because if Fernandes gets injured, I think they're done. I think you saw that when they didn't start Fernandes and Rashford at the weekend. They're a different team to when they came on. But then, like I say, I think the forerunners are obviously Liverpool, City, Spurs, and Chelsea. I mean, there's not much to split them. I'd still favour Liverpool, your side, just in terms of options that they have, especially attackingly. Obviously, you're struggling at the back. But yeah, it will be a real tight race to the end of the season. And just to touch on the actual results this week, it was a really poor result for us at the weekend in terms of the match results. When you spoke just at the start, there were lots of the favourite teams winning other than Arsenal, but obviously Spurs were jolly in that anyway. So really poor results for us for the match winner markets. But we did do well in midweek in Europe. We made a lot of Spurs in Europe, obviously against LASK Linz. I think I pronounced that correctly. We laid them all the way down to 14-1 on in running. And so they went really short in running, and them getting beat was fantastic for us midweek. And we also laid Atletico Madrid against Bayern Munich in Europe, and that ended in a draw, I believe. Bayern were potentially meant to be playing the kids, which they did. They had a lot of players out, but Atletico didn't win that game, so it meant that we went into the weekend with a good bunch of results behind us. And we did get brought back at the weekend ever so slightly, but it wasn't a bad week of football for us.
Yeah, okay, let's get on to the racing then. I see you've listed the big breakaway and the big getaway among our little racing chat here, both of whom basically had, if not bubbles, bursts. They certainly had reputations very much dented, and the big getaway I've been looking forward to really fell into a hole on his chase debut at Navan. But it was a strange weekend, Flynn, because we had that nonsense in the Tingle Creek where Nicky Henderson, I don't know. He's got to run his horses. So the Tingle Creek changes, in terms of the anti-post market. So we can have a chat about that, but also the fact that, Punchestown was a visual catastrophe yesterday, really, because it was just so foggy, and they ended up calling the meeting off in the middle of it all.
Yeah, it was a real mess of a weekend, really, wasn't it? Just start to finish. I mean, let's start with the Tingle Creek. We'll get on to the other horses in just a moment. But with the Tingle Creek, what I said last week, that we laid out to a heavily anti-post at 6-4. We laid quite a large sum at 6-4. So Nicky pulling his horse out wasn't a bad result for us, but I think it was a bad result for racing, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, his interview with Lydia Hislop, I thought he reacted really poorly to what were quite mundane questions. It was good questioning, but it wasn't like she was probing for his response. He kind of it was like angst to build up, and I think that he watched that interview back today or yesterday or whatever, I think that he'll regret the way he came across in that interview. I think we have to run them. There's been a lot of chat on Twitter about potentially doing qualifying races. So to get to the Gold Cup, you have to run in the Cotswold Chase or the Betfair Chase or the King George. And I think that that's not a bad way to go, something like that, to get these good horses to run all season and not just make it all about Cheltenham. I think Cheltenham does have to be the crescendo of the jump season, but can we have races where they could potentially be a run and you're in, or a top three and you're in? There could be something like that. But just touching on the Tingle Creek again, so great result for the anti-post, but in the actual day of race market, it was a really poor result for us at Politologue. It was the only horse we could lay in the race, laid plenty of 11 to 8 and 6 to 4. He's now 8 to 1 for the Champion Chase. Just to touch on the Champion Chase, Greener Team would be our big loser in that book. So seeing Greener Team not winning at the weekend was pretty good for us, even though Politico was a bad result. I'm not sure what your thoughts are, Johnny, on the whole Nicky Henderson debacle and the Altior debacle. What's your kind of take on it?
I think it's a nonsense, to be honest. The Tingle Creek is a really, really good race, and I think at this stage of one's life, as much as he's looking after a commodity like that, all of us would absolutely love to have, racing could do with a clash that would have brought on Saturday. And Cheltenham is 4 days in the calendar. It's not the be all and end all. I don't care what anyone says. I mean, you look at the race last year. The Champion Chase last year absolutely fell apart because Jacques Poursois ended up not turning up, and then you have Deputy Soy running the shockers. The race falls apart. That's one race that you're preserving a horse for that mightn't even get there. You should have been running, and the excuse about the ground was patent nonsense. And, I think we saw, in fairness to John Durkin, at least we saw, some good horses take each other on. But these small fields don't do anything for racing. And this wrapping Altior and Cotton Wool is a load of nonsense as far as I'm concerned. If you have the horse and he's fit, just run him. Cheltenham is 4 months away.
Yeah. And when I look at some of my favourite past races, there would be something in the Hennessy, so Denman winning them, or it would be Moscow Flyer when he won the Tingle Creek and the crowd's going absolutely mental. So it's not just Cheltenham where I look back at old races and I get a real buzz from the nostalgia of watching them. There are other big races as well, but obviously we don't get there. I'm not going to be looking back to see Politologue winning this and getting a real buzz from it.
No, and I also think Cheltenham is... Yeah, well, I think Cheltenham has diluted its... It's diluted stature a bit with all these extra races. The 3 days to 4 days took a little bit of the magic away from me, and I think we do need to look at the rest of the calendar, because certainly in Ireland, some incredibly good racing throughout the year, the Dublin Racing Festival and all that, which I think again is a shame that more English British horses don't come over. So I was very disappointed in Henderson. I think a lot of racing fans lost some respect for him just the way he dealt with that, because it's not sporting at all.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with you there, and it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. So just to touch on a few more bits, we spoke about the big breakaway and the big getaway there. It's a big breakaway, obviously running over a shorter trip than ideal. I think there's a little bit of overreaction. He's 12 to 1 for the RSA now from 8. I think there's a bit of an overreaction there. I know he got beat, but he's going to be better over a longer trip. And if you go back
the trip certainly beat him. I'd be forgiving him more than the big getaway, actually, in some respects.
I was a bit puzzled by the big getaway. I don't really know where he's going to go now at Cheltenham. It could potentially be a 4 mile horse or a 3 mile 6, whatever distance they run over now. But
he just found nothing, though. He found absolutely, you're looking at him going into the second last, third last, maybe the third last, and he's certainly well named because he's such a gorgeous horse, and you're like, everything's going perfect here. But then I was kind of looking at the body language of the two jockeys, and I was like, I'm not sure all is well. He ends up being beaten 21 lengths.
Yeah, but he was almost, he gets to the stage of him where he was so bad, he think was something up. So I'd be thinking more of that rather than taking the run so literally.
Yeah, he can certainly jump anyway.
Yeah. So even though that they were both disappointing, I think the prices are pretty fair now. 14 to 1 for the RSA, 12 to 1 for the RSA for the big breakaway, and then 25 to 1 for the big getaway for the RSA as well. So there's a couple to take out there, even though they got beat. Just to spin through quickly some other results from us from the weekend. So All Mankind won the Henry VIII Novice Chase. That was a really bad result for us. We laid that 5 to 2 all the way down to 2 to 1, and he's now 10 to 1 for the Arkle for the Dan Skelton team. The other results on Saturday at Sandown were pretty positive for us. So moving over to Aintree, Burley on Rouge won his second Beecher Chase. That was a really good result for us. Walking the Mill, who obviously won the race previously, and Yala Enki were the big losers there. And that was a similar story in the anti-post book as well as the day of race book for us. Lakeview Lad was a fantastic result too in the Many Clouds Chase, winning at 16 to 1. Pretty puzzling race. I think he could have had plenty winning it during the race. And obviously he came there travelling at the end, and then he's just kind of eased through to the line. Santini kind of staying on all the way. He was the most popular with punters. He was the one that we laid heavily. He was unchanged at 7-1 for the Gold Cup, Santini, and Native Rivers 33-1 for the Gold Cup after that race. So again, interesting ones there. A lot to take forward in terms of anti-post markets. And while we're touching on anti-post markets, Cheltenham Festival is probably one to talk about for the Champion Chase. We spoke a bit about the Champion Chase just now when we were speaking about the Tinkle Creek and the fact that Politogo's 8-1. Cheltenham Festival is your favourite for the Champion Chase next year in March. He's 5-2 from 4-1, winning pretty easily at 1-5 in the Hilly Way. The race obviously Underso used to come out and win every year. And then we spoke about Me and Ever so briefly. We couldn't actually see much of it, so we have to take what Patrick said as gospel in terms of when they were jumping the last. He thought he was beaten. Tornado Flyer was travelling the best. The Min winged the last, and then obviously went on to win by a length or so. He's finding favouritism for the Ryanair in March at 7-1. Imperial Laura's favourite there, and I think that could turn into a proper juicy race come March.
Yeah, the Hilly Way, I backed Durasso in the place market, which is one of the luckiest, possibly the luckiest bet I've ever had. So if you have people bemoaning, oh, this horse fell on me, oh, this horse let me down for all this money, well, I backed Durasso yesterday in the Hilly Way, so basically I was completely blessed. But let's talk about the Ultimate Nations Cup final in the rugby. Ireland getting some measure of kind of respect back with a decent enough performance. What did you lay though?
So it was all about the England-France match for us. So we laid England on the handicap, which was a great result. Obviously, we went to extra time and there was an exhilarating finish with England winning through sudden death there. So fantastic result in the rugby. That kind of set us up nicely for the end of the weekend. Just to quickly touch on golf, that'll be the last sport we'll touch on. We had the Mayakoba Classic this weekend, which Victor Hovland won. We had plenty of 11-1 in running and all the way down to 5-4 in running. That was a really poor result for us. So a pretty mixed bag in terms of sport. I'd say we were okay on the racing, we were good on the football, and then good in the rugby and poor on the golf. So that'd be an overview for you for sport for last week.
Fair enough. And we've the Manchester Derby coming up this week, as well as racing from Cheltenham, Doncaster and Sha-Tin, as well as some boxing highlights. So the show goes on.
It does indeed. So, I mean, boxing is probably the big one this week. We've got AJ back out. So Anthony Joshua fights Pulev. 1-10 AJ, 40-1 the draw, and 30-2 Pulev. And obviously, if AJ does beat Kurat Pulev, then he'll probably go on to fight Tyson Fury at some point next year. And that'll be a massive super fight, obviously. We've got that one priced up on site as well. So AJ 6-4. The draw will be 25-1, and then Fury's 8-15. I think AJ probably a little bit of value there. If there are any boxing aficionados out there wanting to take a look at that. And also just to touch on the race, and also you've mentioned the main cards there at the weekend. Sha-Tin is one I wanted to highlight. We've got a host of Group 1s at Sha-Tin on Sunday, and Magical is 5-2 favourite for the Hong Kong Cup. So pretty interesting few races over there, as well as obviously Cheltenham on Saturday, where we have the Caspian Caviar Gold Cup. Our Dancer at 8-1 and Windsor Avenue at 10-1 will be the main losers in our anti-post book. Our Dancer, obviously, the Nigel Twiston Davies horse for that, but well back for the Paddy Power Gold Cup. So those will be the two horses that we won't want to win there. And like I say, we've got a good football card as well at the weekend with the Manchester Derby and plenty more going on.
Yeah, best of luck to Romanise as well from Ken Condon's yard, who will be part of the Irish contingent in Hong Kong. Flynn, thanks you very much as ever.
Cheers, Johnny.
Yeah, have a good week, and we'll talk to you next week with more Trader Chat.